Hey everybody, welcome back. I'm so sorry. It looks like we got kicked off somehow, so I'm going to go ahead and do this as a part 2 segment. So if you were watching before and you want to continue watching this, let's go ahead and move back into the live and I'll share the second details, right? So we'll have to go ahead and renew your page and then come back in. I'm just going to put a note in here that we got kicked off. All right, well, thanks for watching anyway. So let's go ahead and we'll start stitching, and hopefully if people will join back in, they'll be able to see that. So I'm lined up and we're just going to use every other line on this, and so we'll go ahead and start sewing pretty quickly just to kind of get this going. We don't want to waste a lot of time on this part. If you have any questions about Spinifex, definitely let me know. The reason that we're using this one with the pointy part out towards the end is we're going to use these sharp points right there to help build our crosshatch. So I'm going to line them up, and they give just a single element out on the edges. So as I'm going around, I want to really make sure not to skip the wrong amount of lines. We should be just jumping every other line. And I'm checking when I come into the center to make sure that I'm in the center. So my line is here, skip, and a line to the next line. I'm checking my reference lines on both sides, and here we go. So this design, when you leave it open, it's kind of spiky with these sharp areas out to the edges. And I like to add a little embellishment, so we're going to add the cross-hatching to it and make it a little bit more soft, a little bit more fun, not as sharp like this. So there's the skip, and go to the next line. Here we go. So I'm keeping my fingers out of the way, but I'm activating that stable tape right down on the end, and I've got several pieces activated up here. This piece and this piece are both activated by my fingers, and my foot's all the way in. So from this position, skip, go to this next line back here. As we're sewing on this one, I will go ahead and not rotate my sandwich. I'll let you see what it looks like, and we can go every direction without rotating our sandwich. I'll be the first one to admit I do it a lot, right? I mean, you guys see that I do a lot of times on the camera. But if you can, push your sandwich, make it work for you. That way, you'll get a lot of good practice making sure that you can move your sandwich in every direction that you want to. So from this position, I'm going to skip this one, go to the next one. I can look right back here, but I can also use this forward reference line to line things up. There's a line right here, so I can also trust this line in the front as well. Actively pushing opposite of the way that I want to go. If I'm sewing forward, I'm pushing to the back of the machine, right? As this was coming in, I'm pushing that way. So skip and go to the next one, and I can line it up straight on this reference line, and here we go. Getting right back into the center. And it's always a good idea with these Spinifex, check your center position. If you're one stitch off or so, that'll start building up. So keep moving it and put this right in the center each time. Like I had one more stitch to get there. So Lori, yes, absolutely this can be done on a quilt. Is it harder? What she's asking, I'm going to interpret what I think she's asking, so you can clarify, Lori, for me if I'm wrong. Are you asking, can you do this on a larger quilt? Like this is small, right? Easy to move. A larger quilt, rulers will make the design nice and pretty, but they're not going to make the quilt lighter. They're not going to make the quilt easier to move, easier to manage. You're still going to have to package up the quilt carefully and have support for it and maneuver it. one of the keys to working with a larger piece on a domestic machine is that the quilt has to be supported. You can use suspension arms, your ironing board, your glider, everything that you need in order to make sure that the quilt can move freely. That's going to really make this possible. But you definitely can go ahead and do this on a large quilt. So I said I wasn't going to turn it. So one skip, come to this line. I'm going to check those reference lines each time so that I can get a nice symmetrical design here. And we're almost all the way around. I saw somebody just found us. Yes, I don't know why it kicked us off, but it did. So I went ahead and I posted the first part of the lesson. And later on, I'll try to download them and just incorporate them into one unit. But for now, they're split. So skip, go to the next line each time. So let's see. So let's go ahead and ask our audience, has anybody used Spinifex 11 on a larger quilt and done, a motif like this or another Spinifex that's pretty large? And if you have any tips or input that you want to share, that's why we're here. It's not just that it has to be what I explain or what I say, but we're all here to share that experience together. So if you want to add in some notes about what you think might make things easier, definitely do that. We can all help each other. Okay, so we're almost done. And let's see, I think we have one more. Okay. So when I do this next one, this is the last one, I want to end on the outside. So I'll complete this entire portion of the design right here, okay? And I don't want to move the ruler, right? I want to be careful so that as I stitch back up, that I can get right back to where I was without any shifting, any movement of the template. Okay, so I'm at the top. Let me take this off. Okay. I'll put my little tape on. Wow, so lots of people have used Spinifex 11 is a favorite of mine as well. So I'll be the first one to tell you that. I think you've seen me use it a lot. I love it. Let me show you a couple of things now. Let's cut this thread and get this out of there. So I'm going to show you ways that we can manipulate these templates. This has 3 inches and 4 inches right here. You could also use the arcs themselves. The 4-inch arc is included with the sampler set, so you can always use that. And this is an example of where these additional crosshair reference lines are super valuable. We have a skip, but we're going to show you now how we could use those skip lines with our arcs in order to keep things lined up the way that we want. So again, spacing gauge is your friend here as well. Both of these are the same, right? You can use either one of these. This one has the center line, this one has the center line. If you're making echoes, the arcs are a little bit more useful in that sense because they have the extra lines. And the arc can be used on this side or on this side, whereas obviously the clamshell can only be used on this outer ring. So if you had either one of these type of things, these would work. We're going to use this 4-inch arc just because it has the extra reference lines, and a lot of people have that. Okay, so first thing I want to do is use my center line, and I'm going to push this down enough that I can get to that point. When you line up your spacing gauge, right, this reference line, this is your width. So this flat edge right there should be aligned flat against the ruler right there, not like canted like that. Can you see that okay? Try and put those flat edges together. So I'm going to use the reference line from the crosshair square and kind of adjust it to get right to this next point. So that's an example of where that crosshair line and having those extra reference lines can be super valuable for designing. Okay, and our little spacing gauge, he's worth his weight in gold, right? They're so awesome. They're such a good tool, and they really help us do so many different things. So Let me explain something right now. We just used the 4-inch arc and we're basically pushing it in so that we have the 1/4 inch space on each side. I can do the same thing with the 3-inch arc right here if I want to. This will push in further. He'll dip down further in there. This is going to be flatter. If I tried to use this one, that curvature is going to dip much further down into that space, right? So you could actually do both of them if you wanted to make a swag, or you can make the choice to have the dip be very deep into this space or shallow. By choosing your arc, that's what you're getting. So if I use this bigger one to bridge this distance, he can only come up so far, so he'll be flatter. Whereas if I use this narrower one and I push it up further, he's going to have a lot deeper dip right there. So that's why the different arcs can make a big difference, and you can test those out and see what look you like best. For me, I'm just going to keep going with the one that we've already selected, and I'm using my spacing gauge to get them lined up perfectly. And typically, if I use the center reference line, the spacing gauge, and the existing design itself, then when all of these are finished, this design should be symmetrical. We shouldn't have one of these little areas be so much out of tolerance with the other. They all should be the same distance, the same depth, right? Because they're pretty much the same, right? So we'll just keep on going. I do want to put a few of these because I can't do the crosshatch until we get sort of these in there. So we'll go ahead and put these on, check my spacing each time. I'm aligning the far side of this right where I want the needle to go. The very edge of this little tip of plastic is right where I want the needle to end, where it's touching that existing stitch line. Sometimes I think we align for the needle to be on the outside. Like if this is the 1/4 inch, we align the needle outside, but it's actually that plastic tip right there that you want to align for your needle position when you're putting this on to get aligned up for a 1/4 inch. Okay, so those two things with your spacing gauge, making sure that the edges are flush, and then you want to keep lining things up. So checking my center position too, and that's going to help make everybody the same. Remember that these lines are going to go away, so I can tell like this one's off a little bit. I want to respond to the existing design, right? I don't want to respond to the crosshair because the crosshair is going to go away. So make sure that when I line this up, I'm trying to get right to the tip and close that portion of the design each time. Okay, let the needle fully stop before we start doing anything, like shifting things around or anything like that. So that one's just a little bit bigger for some reason. Once your center point gets misaligned, then there's things happen, right? So we're going to have to make a little adjustment there. Now we'll close it. Now we're going to just do probably 4 of the arcs on the outside so that we can get a stage set for our design. Okay, this is what we've got so far. This makes it a little bit more of a round motif. The spikes are a little bit blunted, and when we add this next piece, it's going to be even more so. Now I can still use this on this side using that center line, and this is going to be the same thing. We want to use our spacing gauge to get right to where we want to. We're still going to close the same tip, and let's do just about half of these. We won't do all of them because I think you'll still be able to get the idea without all of them. All right. Like I said, I think we need about 4 so you can kind of see the design shape. Okay. Using that center line, we're right on the 1/4 inch. It's very easy to line these up. Got a skinny little orange peel. The orange peel is not that wide because we use that 4. If we use that 3, it would be a much deeper look for it. So we're trying to make sure we can get right to our center position. We're trying to make it nice and tidy. So I'll just put this finger back here and help pull. All right, one more, and then we'll just start our cross hatching. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and put an echo in here, and I'm going to show you how we're going to do it. Let me just tie this off. I want to reposition the whole system so you can get the best view. Would I do this all the way around? Of course. Yes, I would. For sure. Okay. Get those threads out of there. Spacing gauge, I'll set him aside so I can find him later if I need to. What I want to do now is I want to make a gap, right? So I'm going to line the first reference line right there on the center line, just like I did above this arc, right? So it's just like that. Notice that this actually is narrower right here, but I can sew all the way to this arc right here on this side. Okay, let's put a little arrow sticker so we have a good visibility of how we're lining this up. I'll put a green one on this time. I think green will show up really well. So we're using the first reference line like that, this arc, and we're lining up on the center line just like we did before. Okay? Now, I'm going to start sewing kind of in the middle because this one doesn't have the stop on that side, so we won't know where to go. So I'm just going to start in the middle of this one. We're making an echo to the existing design. How does that make a crosshatch? Well, hopefully you will see in just a moment. Okay, so let's sew. We're going to sew until we touch the existing design all the way out to there. It's pretty far. Now, this I can use to travel if I want to, or I can freehand. I'm going to go down to the center, and I need to travel back up on the next one as well. So how far do I need to travel up? Well, let's find out. It's about 1/4 of an inch right there, so let's check it. So that is not quite far enough. I need maybe 2 more stitches, 1 or 2 more stitches to align the template. We're lining this back on here on the center line and right at that green arrow. Okay, so just every time we're going to be using this exact same alignment, and our foot needs to go enough that we can, and then we'll do the next one. So you're going to touch all the way till the top arc until the needle hits it, right? And then you're going to travel over a little bit to the center and back up on the top one. Just enough here so that this can fit on there. I'm right on the center line. I'm on the existing curvature of the previous one, and I'm about 1 stitch too far. So I just stitched back, and I'm going to sew all the way over until I touch the next arc right there. So I'm looking inside the foot, making sure that I'm following the existing line, the existing design. I'm going to sew back to that center and then come out a few stitches so that I can line up for the next one. Line up the template first, and then if the foot is touching, great, but if the foot has a gap, you can just sew back and you'll close that. Okay, get my fingers out of the way there and go all the way to the existing arc right there. Okay, so traveling, and again, you can use your ruler to travel here if you want to. There's no reason not to. I do recommend practicing overstitching whenever you can because it's a skill. And if we don't practice it, we don't get better. So be useful here to practice that. Okay, so we don't have the existing curve going this way, so I'm just going to pause right there. But I would go around and I would put the arc in on the other side. So now, if I want to make a bigger echo than this, then I have to start somewhere, so we'll just kind of scoot out a little bit this way. Okay, and now we can move this up to a different line. Still, we can be on the center position, but we'll put one more echo, one more reference. We're right on that center line. We're still at the 1/2 inch, and my foot is going to have to go back until it's touching. Okay, now, once we're lined up, we'll just sew around. So I'm just going to move my finger so I can get a little bit better position right there. Now we are going all the way down to that first arc. Okay, so again, what do we have to do now to put this extra crosshatch right in there? We would have to travel again, okay, on the existing stitch line, going the other way. And we're going to have to travel out a little bit further this time in order to get this aligned. We don't know how far until we kind of align that, so I can see I need a little bit more, maybe 3 stitches. And then I'll line this up. I'm looking for that arrow to be aligned just like it was before and have this line right through the center on the line, which it is right now. It's pretty much lined right up. Okay, so here we go. Okay, again, stopping on the very first arc, that's what creates the crosshatch. We're crossing over right here, and we're going to come around, and then we'll close the design on the other side. This is definitely going to create a little bit of extra stitching as we go around. You can see right in these areas you're going to get a little bit more, but look at how it's looking so far, right? So there's our center. We want to get lined up right there. Once I put this on, I can check my foot position. Looks like I have maybe 1 stitch to come back. Okay, and then I'll hold this in place and we'll start stitching over. Okay, and adjust my hand position again. Okay, so stitching over again, right across that same space, and back up the arc and a few extra stitches so that we can align. So we're getting this really cute crosshatch, and then again, we're using this center line right here. Line that up right on your center line, right on the first reference line, and then my foot is close. If it's too far or not enough, you know, you can always adjust that, and then we'll just start sewing. Changing my hand position, making sure I have nice, good, even pressure all along the template. Okay, and then we'll do that one last one and we'll just come up to the center. That'll help complete the visual field right there for you guys. So right there, and I have to come back up this arc just a little bit. If I needed that, could I use my template? Of course, go ahead. If you have to have it, go ahead. Okay, these are tools that are there for you, not the other way around. As we do this last one, I'm going to try to bring this in just a little bit closer so you can see the alignment markings here. Okay, so what I want you to be able to see here is the alignment. We're lining this arc up, and we have to go on top of this partial arc right there. So that is the reference line that we're looking for. So the position would be the green arrow, and this arc, the first one, is right on this line, okay? And the center line is aligned right here. You can see from this position the foot isn't quite touching, so I'm going to take 1 or 2 stitches to get the foot to touch going back, okay? And then here we go. And we'll just stop right at the center right there. I'll just tack that off. Oh, press the wrong button. There we go. All right. We'll cut this. All right, so we did, you know, beyond the basics, cross-hatching a little bit. I do think this adds a lot of drama to this design. Let's see if I'll pull it out a little bit so you can see both sides of it. Okay. So you can see the side with maybe just the arc right here would still look great, putting that around, but I absolutely love it with the double crosshatch like that. I really think it adds a lot. In addition, this right here, you could easily crosshatch by coming in this way. I'll just mark it in right here. So we could use the template, right? And you could put in just a few crosshatch lines like this, okay? And then come back and do it the other way, like this. So something just as simple, and we don't need a million. We don't need a million crosshatch lines. That's also important. Sometimes just 2, right? 1, 2 can really make the difference. So it's not that we have to fill every single space up with a billion little lines, but sometimes just a little bit more density will cause this area of the quilt to compress, and this area already has enough going on because it's already got some crossovers and some secondary designs. So let me see. I'm not sure if it shows really well. This is more of just the texture, right? Because it's just white thread. Okay, but it looks awesome. I mean, really, the cross-hatching I think really looks great when you see the shadow of it and really adds a lot of texture to the design. Let me show you the other one as well. We did the purple thread so that you guys could see the texture on the front and the movement, but this is the texture on that other one with just the 3 lines on each side and really adds a lot there. And then this one is the one obviously that we still haven't fixed. Thank you, Sue. But let me cut that. I don't want that in our visual field. Okay. But looks awesome, right? It's going to add so much compared to this. Just a few little lines, and you've really changed the design and made a little bit more interest, a little bit more complexity, something that's really valuable. So don't get carried away having to do a million of these. Just a couple really make a big difference. Let me just see real quick if we have any questions that we can answer really fast. Okay. So I see a bunch of comments. You guys are all awesome. It's not going to let me review them easily. You want to continue watching this? Let's go ahead and move back into the live, and I'll share the second details, right? So we'll have to go ahead and hang on. Just let me turn that off and then come back in. Oh my goodness. So new technology. Sorry, I didn't have the volume off. But anyway, I'll go back through. I will check out all of the new comments that are on there. If there's any questions or anything that people need to know based on the stuff that we did today, I'll go ahead and respond to those people. And hopefully you can see how the different crosshairs can be really useful to getting just the right element, just the right design that you want to have. And I hope you'll play with this because this can be used for basically any spin effects, a lot of the different circles on quilts. You can crosshatch into clamshells, circles, anything you want. And using a curved or a straight can really make a difference. So hopefully you guys had fun, and I'm sorry for the little techno issues that we had today. So I have a new iPad and I'm not very good at it right now. I was hoping that would make it a little easier to chat with you guys, but clearly it defeated me today. So have a great day, you guys. Happy quilting, and I will have the calendar out soon. I do have a lot of travel in February and March. So now I'm controlling the post for whether I'm on or not. So hopefully it will be accurate, and please check or send me a note. You know, I do respond, and we'll try to make sure we know when we're on. Okay. So Lorna, I used the 9.5 on one, and I used the 11.5 on the other. This one with the 14, Spinifex 14, this was the 11.5 because I wanted to create more room for crosshatching, for bigger crosshatching here. So this one is a little bit wider, and it has, you know, more openness. The 9 is a little bit more dense because I didn't use the biggest one. You would have had more extension here, a little bit longer if I used the biggest one. So this was the 9.5. This 9.5 inch Spinifex 11 is in the Quilt and a Bag kit along with the 6-point crosshair. So that is, I think it's like 110 for that set or 113 for the long arm. Well, you get the crosshair ruler and you get the Hearts of Plenty, which is completely awesome, and the CBL 2x2, plus you get this awesome Spinifex number 11. So if you don't have those tools, that is a really great set to kind of get access to those. All right, you guys, have an awesome week, and love being back, and I love chatting with all of you guys and seeing the stuff that you guys are posting too. Have a terrific week. Happy quilting.